Welcome to the Golf Report podcast, joined by Jess Hall, who is an amateur golfer and a player on the LET Access Series. Jess, thanks for joining me, and how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
It's great to be
Um,
with
so
you.
we're so we were just talking. You're in Portugal right now. Tell me, how are things going in Portugal? And just, how are things going? How are your holidays and New Year's?
Yeah, so everything's been going good, pretty relaxed sort of Christmas break here in Portugal with my family for 4 weeks, just escaping the cold of England.
Yeah. Do you often, go on a trip to try to escape the cold of, England?
Yeah, so we'll do this trip like every in time. And then a little bit later, so in March time as well, right before the season starts.
Yeah. And are you getting to play any golf, or are you just taking time away from golf right now?
So I'm playing a little bit of golf and a little bit
Okay.
of practice, but there's also the rest side of things as well. But it's difficult to rest when the weather's so good here, and I know it's going to be so terrible when we get back.
Yeah. So did you bring your clubs to Portugal, and have you played any courses there in Portugal?
Yeah, so I played a couple of times out here, and then just some practice as well. But I took a little bit of time over Christmas away from it, which was nice to have a little bit of a break.
Yeah. So you're from England, obviously, in England you have to deal with the winter weather. Do you get to play golf, outdoors often, in England during the winter?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult in England during the
Yeah.
winter. It's more of a driving range kind of setup.
Okay.
A little bit out on the course, but
Yeah.
it's just not the best when it's kind of muddy and horrible.
Yeah. Do the courses, do they open, do they remain open, or do they stay open sometimes during the winter?
So quite often it's closed.
Okay.
I think right now it's closed because they're kind of having sort of snowy, icy weather, but it just varies. Like last winter, it was shut quite a bit. So then it's just kind of the driving range and sort of putting inside.
Yeah. And how often, do you get to play and practice, during the winter?
So play maybe like twice a week, but practice most days. I actually have a home setup as well, so if the weather isn't looking great, I can just stay inside and do some practice.
Yeah. Do you ever get to like hit indoors or anything like that?
Yeah, so we have a net set up downstairs where I can hit inside and do a little bit of putting as well.
That's good. So what are some of the things, that you work on during the off season and the winter?
Yeah, so basically I'll work on areas that I thought needed improving throughout my season, and then a lot of swing changes. And then this year I'm really trying to push to get some more distance off the tee, because I'm pretty an accurate player, but if anything, I lack just a little bit of distance off the tee when it comes to sort of playing on the access.
Yeah. What are some things, you're working on to get more distance?
Just generally trying to hit the ball a little bit harder. And then I'm also going to make an equipment change. So a new driver and a shaft and see if that'll help in any way.
Yeah. Are you someone who do you usually, tinker with or, change equipment, or do you usually, stay pretty consistent with your equipment in your bag?
So I usually stay pretty consistent. I'm sponsored by Ping, so it's
Okay.
I kind of work with them a lot. But I've had this driver in the bag about a year and a half now, and I just kind of feel that it might be something that could help me improve this area. So we'll just kind of see how that goes once I get back and get down there.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're sponsored by Ping. Just how has it been, playing Ping clubs, and what are some of your, favorite clubs in your bag? Or what are some clubs that, are really working well in your bag?
Yeah, so Ping absolutely brilliant, and the
Mhm.
service that you get from them is great, and they really care about you.
Yeah.
Just sort of not necessarily favorite clubs in the bag, but I just generally like all of my Ping clubs, and I've been with them a couple of years now, and they've been really good to me, whatever I needed.
Yeah. So you mentioned, you're pretty straight player, you hit the ball, pretty straight, but you're working on distance. So just tell me about some of the weaknesses and some of the strengths of your game. Do you more like more, putting and short game, or do you like more the long game, hitting driver and woods?
Yeah, so the short game, chipping and putting is the strength of my game, and I think
Okay.
that's come through not having as much distance. And obviously, like when I was a lot younger, it was the same, and I've just always been pretty good at it. So, I kind of like that area, and then say I'm pretty accurate, and then no matter what club I have, I'll pretty much put it close, so that can range between hybrid and wedge. So
Okay.
in a way, it's kind of like distance off the tee, which would be great. But that's kind of my strength is no matter where I am, I'll get it somewhere near.
Yeah. And if you're going out to, practice, do you usually, focus on one part of the game more often than not? Like, do you focus more on short game when you're going out to practice, or just what you need to work on? Or do you usually, keep your, practice consistent between, short game and, hitting on the range?
Yeah, so I'll probably practice more of my long game,
Okay.
or kind of what needs working on. But it's a little bit of the element of being in England as well because of the
Yeah.
the conditions that we get. Short game more, it'll be practice like on the course, like if we play like 9 holes or whatever, and just in and around the greens. But I'd say that the short game's pretty strong, so it's like just maintaining that and trying to improve the long game.
Yeah. And being there in England, during the winter, it's hard to get out there and, play outdoors. Do you ever find yourself, getting rusty with your game, particularly the short game where you feel things, are pretty good, even though, you can't play outdoors, all the time in the winter?
Yeah, so like sometimes it can get a little rusty when you don't play much.
Hmm.
The short game definitely. So I'll try my best to keep everything going,
Yeah.
but then really once I've had a good practice session, like maybe 1 or 2 days, I'm back to where it was.
Yeah. So you recently played in LATQ school. How was your experience, playing in LATQ school?
Yeah, so Q school is so
Mhm.
difficult, and it's not like any normal event during the year, and I've been
Mhm.
there a couple of times now, and the pressure's just totally different.
Yeah. So where did you play, LATQ school?
It can be like up to 10 rounds in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
plus your practice rounds as well. So it's quite a long time.
Yeah. Where did you play, Q school?
So I played at La Manga 2 years ago, and then also in Morocco the year after that.
Okay. So how was it, going to Morocco and playing in Q school?
It was different. It was my first
Mhm.
visit to Morocco, and I'd heard sort of mixed things from people. Yeah, it was actually okay once you got there and got settled in.
Yeah. So just tell me more about, LATQ school. Just tell me how it works and, what your experience is, playing in it. Is it, a stressful week for you, or do you manage, playing Q school, pretty well?
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably the most stressful week that I've
Mhm.
had out on the golf course. And obviously, you don't realize that until you go for the first time. You just kind of think, oh, this will just be another event.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely not like that. And you kind of have in the back of your mind if it starts to not go so well that you're almost losing out on your dream of being on the tour.
Mhm.
So you've really got to try and put that to the back of your mind, and you don't even think you're going to have that thought until you're like, I don't know, stood out on the 12th, and it looks like you might not make it, and it can
Yeah.
just be like that sort of pressure that you put on yourself as well. Like obviously you wouldn't have in a regular game because if you play and you miss the cut, then you just start again the next week. But obviously everybody wants their card, and that's why we're all there.
Mhm. Yeah. So you have to play pre-qualifying and, final qualifying, and, it's lots of rounds. Just how do you navigate, all that, playing two separate tournaments and just, lots of rounds of golf. Just how do you navigate all of that?
Yeah, so I just try to take it as
Mhm.
almost like two separate tournaments. So we're
Yeah.
going to the first one, and we're essentially just trying to make the cut because
Okay.
if you don't do that, then you're not going to get through. So it's just kind of take it as another event, same process of the practice rounds, the warm ups before, just go out on the course and just try to treat it as normal as possible.
Yeah.
which is easier said than done, but that is the best way.
Yeah, that's great. So you secured your status, for 2025 on the LAT Access Series. You've been playing on the Access Series so far, but just what does it mean to you to secure Access Series, status for 2025?
Yeah, so it's pretty cool to have the full status again.
Hmm.
And I know a little bit more about the tour after playing on it for a couple of years now.
Okay.
Um, and it kind of means you can just not relax, but almost relax because I know that I'm going to get into the events that I want to get into throughout the year.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously I've still got to do well to keep my status, but
Hmm.
when I'm trying to play the amateur events and the LET access, knowing that you have status there is kind of nice because you can just like dot in and out of each of the type of events. Not thinking, oh God, I can't play this amateur event because I have to go to this access because it's the only one I'm going to get into. So it kind of peace of mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, gaining experience, from playing, Access Series, for a few years now. Just what have you learned, from playing on the Access Series so far, and just how have you balanced, playing amateur tournaments and playing on the Access Series?
Yeah, so I've been playing on the Access series for a couple of years now, and it kind of just started with one event that was close to home, and I thought I'd give it a go. And it went from let's just go and play an Access
Mhm.
event to like, God, let's get these points, and like there's potential to win one of these events now. When I've seen the standard and seen what you're up against.
Yeah,
And like it's really despite not playing for money, you're still
mhm.
playing for your points, so it's
Yeah,
like it's not quite the same pressure, but it's not far away from the same pressure because obviously you want the points for the order of merit next season.
yeah,
It's kind of similar from that.
yeah. So just tell me a little bit about the Access Series, because I know with the LAT, you travel around to like a new country almost every week. So just tell me a little about the Access Series, and with the Access Series, is there a way you can get onto the LAT um for like next year?
Yeah,
Just want to have.
so
Yeah.
this in the order of merit, the sort of the top, it's normally 6 to 8 will gain their full LET card.
Okay.
Um,
So, yeah.
and then last year, from there to the top 70, kept their card for next year. And then anybody outside of that had to then go a Q school to try to get status on the access. So it's like essentially you can get your card through playing every week on the access, which could almost be easier than Q school, where it's just like a 2 week, like let's hope we play well kind of thing, whereas if you play the access, you're playing like every week, like,
Yeah.
and you probably can be like quite consistent. That makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, I asked that because I know, in the US, Epson Tour, if you finish, top 15, you can get your LPGA card, or you can get your LPGA card through, going through Q School. So pretty much the
Yeah,
same for the LET.
yeah,
Just tell me
exactly.
about the Access Series, have you made any friends, playing on the Access Series, and just, who are some, other players, who are just really friendly or who you enjoy, getting to play with?
Yeah, so
Mhm.
last year there was a couple of my friends, Megan Dennis and Billy Joe Smith, and they're also from England.
Okay.
And I've known them growing up through my whole time there, and they actually got their LET cards this year, so I'm super happy for them. But sad in a way because they won't be on the tour next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody's great on the access. It's like a big family when you go there. Everybody knows
Yeah.
everybody, and the staff are great, and you just have a great time.
Yeah. Do you have a group of players who usually, hang out with, like have lunch or just play practice rounds with?
Yeah, so I tend to be around like the English or the Scottish girls.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes people that I've played rounds with.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's because I'm kind of new to it. I don't really like travel with people as such yet.
Okay.
But yeah, when I get there, I've got a lot of people that I know.
That's great. So something I'm interested about, learning about. So you've remained an amateur golfer, even though, you play on the Access Series. So just tell me a little bit about, why have you remained amateur? And is your goal, to turn pro someday? Just tell me a little about how that works, being an amateur on the Access Series and just, why have you remained an amateur?
Yeah, so I just haven't felt like it's been the right time to
Okay.
turn professional, and there's not like a ton of money on the access. And also like the last couple of years I've been so close to winning an amateur event and I haven't quite got across the line yet. So there's part of that as well. Like you think that if I just keep going, then I might eventually get that win that I'm looking for. But it's kind of you're on when you play as an amateur on the axis, you're almost looking from the outside in. Like I was saying earlier, it's I'm
Mhm.
not playing for the money, so you
Yeah.
get to see what it's like seeing the pros play for the money.
Mhm.
And it's almost like nice in a way to sit back and watch that because it's not as much pressure. But obviously, I go and I can't win that money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of trying to figure out what I'm gonna do, and I'm in the same situation next season. I'm just trying to figure it out whether it's something to do straight. Like I wouldn't do it quite straight away because the access doesn't start till April, but you can play amateur stuff before then.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just deciding when the right time is to do it. But
Yeah.
I would like to turn professional, yeah.
Yeah. So just, talk a little bit about, your 2024 season. So overall, just how would you assess your 2024 season on the Access Series?
Yeah, so on the access, it was really good. Sort
Mhm.
of came off a high with a fourth place finish at Mill Green, which was great.
Yeah.
I had no sort of form going into that. Um, just the whole season started off really well, and then sort of a bit of a low during the middle of it, and then it started to pick up once I'd started to play some of the access events at the end, which was exactly what I needed for the order of merit points. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was the access was really good this year.
Yeah. So, you mentioned at Mill Green, you got a fourth place finish. One of your friends, Megan Dennis, got, the victory by 2 strokes. So just tell me about that tournament and what did it mean to you to get a fourth place finish?
Yeah, so that, like I say, I had no sort of form going into it, so we were just
Okay.
going out there and trying to play good golf. And I got off to a really bad start in round one, and sort of when you're in a bit of a low period, you just think, oh God, like here we go. But then I managed to turn around with like three birdies in a row or something, and the week just really turned around, and the course really suited me. We'd played a sort of practice, like a practice tournament round a couple of days before, and I'd gone around and played terribly, but it was almost a good thing for me to learn because I learned not to just stand there and hit the driver everywhere and sort of put yourself into trouble. And I think that really helped when we got out on the course, to sort of learn from what mistakes I'd made in that round. And kind of in the last round it was really close, and I don't really realize how close it was to the win, like just a few shots behind, because I never know whether I'm a leaderboard watcher or not, or whether I just like not to know. So
Mhm.
I just kind of went with let's not know, because like you could literally shoot six under a day and still not win. So it's just you just kind of go out there and see how you score rather than everybody else. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but let's talk about your second round, and how that was for you. You got two birdies and no bogeys and you shot two under. So talk about your second round and then, you mentioned you were close, to the lead. But third round maybe didn't go the way you would have liked. You shot even, par 72. You had four bogeys. So just talk about your second round, two birdies and, no bogeys, and then just how difficult the third round was, maybe not, scoring the way you would have liked.
Yeah, so the second round, it was just one of those days where everything went right and
Yeah.
it felt like nothing could go wrong. I never really looked like dropping a shot.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of easy. And obviously, the bogey free doesn't happen very often. So it was
Yeah.
kind of nice to do that. It was a course where you could score pretty low. So two under was pretty good. Obviously, could have been better. Yeah, and then that last round, it was disappointing in a way because you want to go out there and chase the lead. And then I had a really bad front nine, and it was almost like it was over. So
Mhm.
just kind of go out freely, play the back nine, and just enjoy it. And then obviously got a few birdies in there, and it was close. But yeah, you kind of just learn every time you're in this situation of almost in the lead, not quite finishing it off how you'd like.
Mhm. Yeah. So let's talk some about your amateur golf. Before we were starting, we were chatting a little about the Concession Cup. I believe that's kind of, for amateur golfers. It's kind of like your Solheim Ryder Cup style tournament where it's Europe versus USA. So just, tell me a little bit about this Concession Cup and what it was like, going to Georgia and playing in this tournament, representing Europe in November.
Yeah, so it all started really from this sort of email that I got from Elaine Ratcliffe, who was the captain, and it sort of almost didn't feel real. And it was like, would you be interested in playing for Europe at the Concession Cup? And I'd never even heard of this event until I sort of started researching it, and it was actually the first time that women have ever been a part of the Concession Cup.
Okay.
Um, so that was a pretty big deal in itself to be the first women to be out there and playing. Basically you're asked by like a total stranger to go halfway around the world to play an event that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
But it was really cool once we got there and got to know everybody in the team, and everybody was great. And just I feel like it doesn't even feel like it's happened because it was such a big deal to stand there and be
Mhm.
announced for Europe on the tee, not just England this time. Europe was pretty special, and the week was great. And unfortunately, we didn't beat the Americans,
Yeah.
but we did actually beat them in the singles. So that was kind of like our victory in the end of the week.
Yeah. I was looking up, but tell me, who are you partnered with mostly that week?
Yeah, so I played with Pauline
Yeah.
Stein from
Hmm.
France, and we kind of got on so well in the practice round. Elaine had put us together, and we basically the same person, the same game, the same personality. So we knew from the moment that we'd met each other on the golf course that we would be great together.
Yeah. Pauline, I just couldn't think of her name. But how was it teaming up with Pauline, that week?
Yeah, she was great. And we played well in the first pairs match, despite getting beat on the 18th. It actually looked like we were going to have a chance to win because Pauline put it to about 2 feet, but unfortunately the Americans made the birdie first.
Hmm.
So that was pretty tight, and we were leading most of that round, and then the second round we unfortunately caught an illness on the after the first day, so we were a little bit not in a great place between us, but we still did pretty well in the second round as well.
Oh, so you got sick after the first day?
Yeah, there was about
Oh,
over half of everybody, including the Americans, that was sick. Yeah.
oh, yeah. So we'll talk about it, in my next question. But for this question, just tell me, how were you able to overcome, your illness and just, tell me a little about, overcoming your illness and just how that was.
Yeah, so they'd
Mhm.
agreed that because of the illness, that if we couldn't make it past the ninth sort of thing, we'd call it a half. So that we did that on the second day, but
Okay.
then the third day, where personally I was feeling a lot better on the third day, but still not 100%. But it was kind of like, okay, we're a team here. Like this is a once in a lifetime thing. Like, come on, let's go and get the point for the team, because we went out there with no reserves, so it was just everybody to play no matter what, really. So it was I won my singles, and it was really difficult to push through the illness, but
Yeah.
like I got there in the end because I wanted to win that point badly.
Yeah. So, Friday singles at the Concession Cup, you had a 2-1 victory over Ina Kim. I got to see her, she's from New York, pretty close to me. But just tell me a little about your singles match and, your 2-1 victory, what that meant for you, and just, what was it like to get the, victory, especially after, dealing with illness throughout the week.
Yeah, so it was. I didn't quite play my best golf out there, but I was just getting up and down from everywhere, no matter what, no matter where I was, or what kind of shot it was, and that definitely won the match for me. And it was really special to finally get a full point on the board for Europe, and it was kind of like a selfish moment where you're like, well, as long as I get my point, because that's obviously it's a team effort, but that's the one you want. Because sort of when we were planning to go out there, if I just think like if I could just get half a point for Europe, that would be amazing. So to walk away with 1.5 points was just even better. And both of my parents were with me at the side of the green when I won, so that made it special too because they were so happy. And then all your teammates around you as well. It was just great.
Yeah. So just, overall, result wasn't the way you would have hoped. US got the victory, but just overall, how was your experience, traveling to the US, playing the Concession Cup and just, representing Europe with your fellow teammates, just how was your experience overall?
Yeah, it was just amazing. And
Mhm.
I feel like I've met friends for life, and
Yeah,
not even just in the European team, but in the American team. And the whole Concession Cup setup was just amazing. And to be, like I said earlier, to be the first women there, they treat us so well. It was like we'd been there many a times before. And we have this special bond in our Team Europe sort of set up, and it's just amazing. Like we still have a group chat now that everyone's texting in like all the time, and it's great that everybody keeps in touch.
that's really great. So let's talk more about your time in the LAT Access Series. You first played in an Access Series tournament in 2022. So just, what was it like to play your first Access Series tournament in 2022? And what you learn, from your experience, playing your first Access Series tournament in 22?
Yeah, so I was really nervous to play that. Said earlier, it was an event maybe like
Yeah.
30 minutes from where I live. I'd played the course a lot.
Okay.
I had a really good friend on the bag who plays there all the time. But yeah, I was very nervous on the first tee and kind of going out there not expecting anything to happen really, because I'd never even really heard of these events before. Played great all week and finished like top 10,
Hmm.
and it just sort of really kick-started. And I learned more about like the standard of the others there as well, like where am I compared to everybody else
Yeah.
out there, and you sort of realize that like I can compete with those people out there. So it was really nice to have an event which was kind of relaxed in a way, despite being nervous. Because I said I have a friend on the bag. Like I had a lot of people from my area came out to watch because it was close by. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah. More nervous. What were you more nervous for, representing Europe in the Concession Cup, or were you more nervous for your first Access Series tournament in 2022?
Probably for the first access tournament in
Okay.
2022, yeah. Because I say never experienced a pro event before, really. I'd played in a couple of open qualifiers, but then just not quite the same as this was, yeah. But because I feel like the nerves are kind of like they're still there when I'm on the first tee, but they're just not quite as much as they used to be.
Yeah. Because I asked that because I know, a lot of PJ and LPJ players who play in like Ryder Cup and Solheim Cup. They play in all those majors like Masters and US Opens, but, Open Championships. But they say that, the Ryder Cup and the Solheim Cup, that's the most nervous time for them, even though they play in some of the biggest tournaments for the year. So, yeah.
Yeah, it
It's, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say like there wasn't like that many crowds at the Concession Cup, so I feel like if like
Okay.
the stands at the Ryder Cup and whatever, I feel like definitely made them nervous. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about, you learned a lot, getting to play with the professionals. Just, what have you learned from getting to play with professionals, all the way from 2022 to now, given that you're technically an amateur right now, just what have you learned, playing from playing with the professionals so far?
Yeah, so one thing I've learned is there's definitely no real massive difference between the pros and myself, like despite being an amateur, like class as an amateur, which is great because you kind of see that and you're like, okay, well, I could definitely do this as a career in the sense that I'm good enough for it. Um, and then like you also learn, I've played with quite a few girls now that have played maybe the actual LET for a few years, and they kind of the way they handle themselves on the course is like it's just amazing. Like we played with this one girl at Mill Green, and she stands on the first tee, and we're two shots back, and she knocks it OB right on the first,
Yeah.
and so we all hit off. She hits a provisional. We get down there. We found it's out of bounds, and she just picked it up and walked on. And I just stood there like, how did she just not even react to that? And I literally said to her walking down the last, I was like, that was unbelievable how you handled yourself, knowing that we were so close to the lead. And you just picked that ball up, and she was like, well, I've just been on the LET for so many years now, and I just kind of like just go with it because there was nothing I could have done. And you're like, God, that's great. Like I can learn from these people that, like, obviously in golf we try not to get upset about bad shots or whatever, but this was just amazing how she handled that.
Yeah. So mental game, and composure and just how you handle yourself. Is that, something that you focus on? Is that something you've learned, through playing on the LET Access Series?
Yeah, so I actually learned a lot of that when I was in Fresno.
Okay.
Um, I kind of never really looked at that side of the game before, but we had a psychologist over there, and I still use him now at home every now and again when I need to, and you just learn a little bit of more like how important that side of the game is. And for me, that's over the last sort of like 6 or 7 years, that's become so much better. And I
Yeah.
understand that it is important to do that side of the game as well as going out to practice.
Yeah. So I'm sure, throughout your practice, that's where, you work on your game and your swing, but through playing in tournaments, I'm sure you learn more of the mental side and just how to, stay composed and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll kind of, if I'm in the situation where I've been in the lead or almost in the lead, I have a kind of notebook that I'll write down how it felt and how I handled myself. So then, like, maybe in a month, if I'm in the same position, I can go back and look at what happened that day and sort of try to learn from that before I go out and play my next game.
Yeah. So you have to talk about, 2023 Rose Ladies Open. That was a big one for you. You finished third place there. You had a
Yeah.
final round of 67. So just tell me about, anything you remember from the 2023 Rose Ladies Open and just what was it like to shoot a final round of 67?
Yeah, so it was amazing. Like I'd been playing pretty well all week. I'd played the tournament the year before and missed the cut.
Okay.
So I was trying to get through the cut, and then I was stood on the first tee, and I wasn't really that nervous until they announced my name, and following that, the leading amateur as well. So that really set off the nerves, and got off to a good start, made a couple of good pars, and then the birdies really started going in, and it was kind of one of those days where you'd hole putt from anywhere. And then obviously that is put on Sky later in the year, and to have the cameras there as well was pretty special. And I remember playing down the 18th, and at this course you have to get like a boat across the lake, and there was a little
Okay.
crowd sat in the stand, and they were clapping me on the green, and that had never happened before. So I was kind of like, oh, like what do I do, kind of thing. And my dad had come over because he was on the bag, and he was like, they're clapping you, like just acknowledge them. So when I came off the green, I sort of did, and yeah, it was just amazing. And then Justin Rose was by the green, and all congratulations, 'cause I finished the best amateur and like top five, and it just the whole day was just amazing.
Yeah. So you're talking about a boat. Do you have to travel by boat to like a hole or
So it's like you come down the 18th, and then you hit your second or your third over the par five, and then you have
okay.
to like put your bag on the little boat and just get across the pond. I guess it's just that kind of thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So you're talking about, nerves. I don't know if we talked about this before. You had the cameras at this tournament on Sky Sports, but just talk about, how do you deal with the nerves, because, I'm sure we all have them, when we play in a tournament, but how do you navigate and just how do you deal with nerves when playing in a tournament?
Yeah, so basically, I just try to take deep breaths. Sort of, if I'm on the first tee, take my practice swing, step back, and sort of just make sure I take my time and take deep breaths. And I always think that nerves are a good thing. You kind of like worried if you don't have any nerves because obviously you want to go out there and do well. It's just a matter of trying to keep calm and try to focus on what you're doing.
Yeah. Do you have any swing thoughts or anything, that you focus in on with your swing, when you're feeling nervous or just when you're in a, big moment or in a big tournament?
It's just more like trying to keep the same routine,
Yeah.
trying to whether we'd be last in the tournament or
Mhm.
sort of leading the tournament, it's just keeping everything the same.
Yeah. So your third place finish, at the 2023 Rose Ladies Open. Just how much confidence did you gain from that week, and just overall, what did that week mean to you? And how special was that week for you?
Yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence
Mhm.
because that was quite a low round total for me. Something that I've done before, but this was a bit bigger of a golf course, like a bigger stage. And like I say, the week was just amazing. Like the whole, like having the cameras there, having crowds. I had a kid cheer me on 17 because I was almost in the lead, which has just never happened before, And then say like Justin's there at the side of the green, sort of like cheering you on and saying congratulations. And it's just a week I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's really great. Great you had, great experience there. So, now we have to talk about, you growing up in England. You're from Bishop Auckland, and I believe, is it Witton-le-Wear? And
Yeah,
you started golf at age 7. So just tell
yeah.
me about, where you grew up. Just tell me about a little about your hometown, and just tell me about your starting golf at age 7.
Yeah, so where I started playing through my dad really and my brother,
Okay.
and he sort of attended junior coach and he's just a couple of years older than me, and I was just keen and wanted to get going and didn't really obviously know that I was going to be good at that age, but then sort of getting to like 11, 12-year old, started winning a few things. And really, I won my first county championship at 14. And that was really when I thought like I could do well in this sport. So sort of started to at school like come away from the other sports to focus on golf. They give me time off for golf. Yeah, and it was really from there. And like where I'm from, it's like we asked about that, and it's kind of like we live in the middle of nowhere. Like the village doesn't even have 600 people in it, and it's great. It's kind of countryside England. Yeah, and we were in a pub as a family, so we sort of lived behind the pub, and it's just kind of a village community where we are.
Yeah, I was kind of looking it up when I was doing research. You live in kind of the northern part of England, is that correct?
Yeah, so just outside of Durham or Newcastle's the nearest big city.
Okay. And then tell me, I was reading your bio. It said that your family runs a pub, so just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my brother actually runs the pub and we all help
Okay.
out. So I work in the pub as well. In lockdown, my dad built a house in the car park of the pub. It's ridiculous. We live so close, but yeah, so it's kind of like a team effort, really. But it's great because we get to see everybody in the village and sort of just be a part of that community as well.
Yeah. And your home club is Bishop Auckland Golf Club. Can you tell me a little bit about just your home club and growing up, playing there?
Yeah, so I've been at Bishop since I was 9. It was
Okay.
actually my membership was my ninth birthday present. And it's great there, and the people are amazing. Like these last sort of few years, when before I went to the States and kind of my time there, and now the support is just unbelievable. And it's really nice to have that kind of you come home from an event and you practice, and it's almost like you can't practice because people are so interested in what happened, but that's just great, like I'd rather that than everybody sort of just ignores you, and that's like you're not even there. So it's just, yeah, it's great being from them.
Yeah. So you're a 6-time county champion. First off, can you tell me a little bit about the county championship? Just, how that works, and just tell me, a little bit about this tournament, because we don't
Yeah,
have,
so
county championships in the US.
yeah, so in England we're all in counties and we're in County Durham.
Okay.
And basically it's a stroke play match play event. So you play 2 rounds of stroke play, and then the top 32 go into match play.
Okay.
So I first played this when I was 13, but didn't I got knocked out in the first round. And then the second year I played, it was the first time I won the event.
Okay.
And I think I was 5 down after 9 in the semis and managed to win on the 19th, which was just unbelievable because like the girl that I was playing was like a top player back in the day, and sort of like I was not expected to win at all. And then I won the final by a mile because it was kind of like anticlimax compared to how hard the semis were. And then yeah, so I've won it 6 times now, and 2 years ago I actually won it at Bishop, so that was really nice to win it at home. Um, yeah, so it's pretty special.
Yeah, and you mentioned county championship at stroke play and match play. So, how do you how do you change switch your mindset, from stroke play to match play? And just tell me, what do you prefer, stroke play or match play?
Yeah, so I personally prefer stroke play. I've not got the best track record in match play outside
Okay.
of the county, like at the English or the British.
Okay.
Yeah, but when I'm playing match play, I just try to think that it's stroke play, because obviously you've still got to get around, but there is the element of you've just got to beat the person you're with. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I mean, bogey could win the hole. It doesn't very often, but like it kind of could. It's a difficult one when you get to the level of the English and the British because you literally have to make birdies to win the hole. And like
Yeah.
obviously that doesn't happen every time you play. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Most people would say that they prefer match play, but you prefer stroke, so that's pretty interesting. So just tell me, do you play? I'm sure you play a lot of stroke play, but do you play match play often?
Not very often. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's part of it as well. Like, obviously I've been selected for England once for match play, but not all the time, so they get to play a lot of it. And then you kind of come up at the English and the British, and you've played like a little bit because the county stuff's not as high level as that. So yeah, you do get match play experience, but it's slightly different levels to when you're like heading to the British or whatever. So
Mhm.
like I think this year, no, 2 years ago, the English was the first time I've actually won a game at an English or a British. So I managed to get through the quarters of that. So that was a good start for the match play.
Yeah. You're a six-time, county champion. So just tell me about, your six victories. Just what does it mean to you to be a six-time, county champion?
Yeah, so I believe that is the joint record number of wins.
Okay.
Um, and just every time is just as special, being every so sort of because it's in your area, like everybody from the club gets to come and like obviously family and friends are there as well. And it's just the whole experience is just so different to when we go to big events or access events and there might just be you or you and me and my dad or whatever. So it's really nice to have like everybody around you as well.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about, junior amateur golf, in England, in the UK. Because in the US, we have like US amateur, US junior. But just tell me how, junior amateur golf works in England and just some of the, big, junior amateur tournaments that you've played in.
Yeah, so they have the British Girls is the biggest
Okay.
amateur event, so like your equivalent of the British Am,
Hmm.
but for youngsters, and then they also have like a few England Golf have a few junior events as well. Yeah, so there's quite a lot to play in, and then there's the Faldo series as well, which obviously a lot of people play in that as well.
Yeah. England golf, I know you mentioned that. You have any connection with England golf? 'Cause I know some, English players in the US, England golf's a big thing for them.
Yeah, so I've never really been a massive part of England golf.
Okay.
It's a little bit political when they
Okay.
sort of picking their teams. So I've played for them for the girls team and the women's home internationals a couple of years ago. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, but it's more just me and myself doing things rather than help from them.
Yeah. Okay. So I see, in May you won the inaugural Seton Ladies Silver tournament. So tell me about this tournament. Just what was it like to win, the inaugural tournament in May?
Yeah, so we live about an hour from Seaton, and I've played
Mhm.
there a lot over the
Okay.
time. And we were playing the English Amateur there this year, and so I thought, well, this will be a great one to play to basically get some practice rounds on it. And kind of, I was a long way behind after round one. I was like 3 or 4 shots behind Lucy Jameson, who shot like 7 under. And you think, well, like that's just unbelievable. Like, how am I going to beat that? Because it wasn't easy. It's linked, that we started early, but the wind had sort of kicked up, and then I managed to shoot level par in the second round, which was a very good level par because the wind had really kicked up.
Okay.
Um, and like I had my mum on the bag, and she's not normally there, and we had no idea of what the scores were, which is not like me. I kind of like to know, like if you're playing with someone, you kind of get an idea of what their score is, and so I sort of hit it like short right of 18, and I thought, well, like if I could just chip and put, like I think I'll win.
Mhm.
But I wasn't really sure. But I managed to chip and put, and sure enough, like I won by one, which was just like unbelievable. And to win it there, and obviously I'm from that county as well, so for them to have me win that as well was it was good for them as well as me.
Yeah. So you mentioned, you live about an hour from there. You got a one-stroke victory. So, just what does it mean to, win so close to home?
Oh, it's amazing because we just don't I just don't get to play at home very often.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's is travel away, kind of wherever, but it's just amazing. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh, this is great for the English Amateur, but that didn't quite go to plan this year. But like it was still, I mean, Seaton it's a really good golf course, so just to get to play around there is good.
Yeah. So you mentioned you shot, a very good level par 72 in the tournament in, the wins. So
Yeah.
yourself being, a high level amateur golfer who plays in, professional tournaments, I think this would be a good, thing to touch on. How do you navigate, playing in difficult, weather conditions? I'm sure you deal with that a lot in England. And do you find that, you're pretty good at, playing, in difficult, conditions when the weather's, not great?
Yeah, so it's like first of all you got to manage like what you expect of yourself because like kind of you go out there thinking that level par's at like a damn good score in the weather.
Yeah.
And then personally for me, I've become a lot better at playing in the bad weather. As much as I live in England, it's still so difficult when the wind kind of kicks up and like the rain is you can deal with the rain in a way, but the wind it's just so difficult. You've just got to just try and practice it and practice sort of the shots to go with it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So you attended, college in the US in California at Fresno State. So just tell me, what drew you to Fresno State first off, and just, how did the recruiting process, work for you? And how did you, first, even hear about, Fresno State?
Yeah, so basically, when I started looking at universities, I had an agent who would sort of contact them and ones that you might be interested in. And
Okay.
I remember I had a friend who was at Fresno State, and I thought it'd be so cool if I could go to Fresno State because that looks so cool. And I'd sort of had my heart set on New Mexico and Albuquerque, and I was like, oh, that'll be the one for me. The facilities are amazing there, like the school looks great, and I got this email from Fresno as well, and they'd offered me an 80% scholarship, whereas I was getting 100% at New Mexico.
Okay.
Um, so I decided that I'd cut it down to those two to visit. So we went to Fresno first, and I just loved everything about it. Like the coach was really what drew me in there. Really like the school, like everything that was going on, and I knew I had to think about the next sort of school in New Mexico, and I kind of went around there half knowing that I'd already decided on Fresno, even though I'd basically verbally committed to New Mexico. Yeah, so I just fell in love with it as soon as I got there.
Yeah. You mentioned, having an agent, as a junior golfer, is that pretty typical for most international, students, to get in contact with U.S. coaches, or was that just, is that not typical for most, international players?
Yeah, so everybody tends to go through an agent because
Okay.
it's just so difficult to keep like to contact all the schools because there's so many over there.
Okay.
And then obviously this person's worked with a lot of different schools and knows a lot of different coaches as well. So that tends to be how like you find one.
Okay. Before, you started, at Fresno State, did you ever get to go to California, or did you ever get to meet the coaches, at a tournament, or did you ever get to go to California? How did that work out for you, or did you just, first meet the coaches in person and all that when you started there?
Yeah, so I had met the coach before going over there to visit. She would
Okay.
the British girls, the coaches come over and
Yeah.
sort of watch you play, but she was kind of there not watching me, if that makes sense, just kind of like looking around. And then I really met her on the visit when we were out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I asked that question because I know some coaches, go out to recruit, like at the British girls, they go out to
yeah,
recruit. So I just wondered if you had met the coaches before, or not in person, if you did stuff mostly virtually. When you were doing,
yeah,
recruiting, did you mostly have, a lot of virtual meetings and stuff like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Cool.
That's how we do it.
And obviously, weather's different from California and England, but just how was the transition for you, going from attending school, in California at Fresno State, you know, given that, you grew up in England, just how was the transition for you? And, how did you feel like you navigated or dealt with the transition?
Yeah, so it was very different moving that far away from home as well. I'd never
Yeah,
even left home before, so this was totally different. And I was kind of having my doubts before I went, thinking like,
yeah,
am I really doing the right thing doing this? But it's something that I've always wanted to do.
mhm,
So I thought like sort of my parents were saying like just give it a go and you can always sort of come back if it doesn't work out.
mhm,
Yeah, so it was just the first like year and a bit was really difficult, like being away from home. And but luckily I had another English player on the team, and she was a freshman too and I was a freshman, so we were kind of in the same boat away from the same country, so we got on well and we lived together, and that was great. And then we unfortunately had COVID in the middle of my sophomore year.
yeah,
It was good and bad because obviously we had to stop doing what we were doing, but got to go home and sort of figure things out. And then when I came back from COVID, it was like a different person had come back to the US. It was fine being away from home, that little bit older now, and kind of like that when you come away from it, you don't realize what you had. And like I know a lot of people thought like that in COVID, and to come back to it, you were just grateful to even be back at school and playing again. Yeah, so it
yeah,
definitely got better as the time went on.
yeah. And what's your goal, always to attend, school in the US?
Oh yeah, sorry, one second. Sorry. Yeah, so it was funny because like a few months ago, I'm sort of going through all my stuff, and like I find this like sort of letter thing that I'd written, or a diary or whatever it was, from when I
Okay.
was about 6 or 7. And the first line was, I really want to attend a university in America. And this, I found this after I'd gone, and I'm like, God, look, back in the day, like I always wanted to do it. And I feel like I kind of saw people doing it in the area, and there wasn't as many as there is now doing it. And I sort of thought I wanted to give that a go and see it from there.
Yeah. Did you ever play in, any tournaments, growing up in the US, or did you ever get to travel to the US, or mostly, attending Fresno State, was that mostly some of your first times, coming to the US?
Yeah, so we'd been to Florida on a couple of holidays, but
Okay.
never to sort of the West Coast. So that was
Okay.
kind of my real experience of America. And then obviously we traveled a little bit throughout the country. So I got to see a little bit more of it then.
Yeah. And then just overall, how was your time at Fresno State? And just how was it, getting to play college golf there?
Yeah, it was amazing, and it's something I'd
Mhm.
never change, and I'd do it all again. I had such a good time and met so many great people. Yeah, and I managed to get a win in my senior year as well. So I won as an individual at our home tournament. So that just really topped off the whole experience to win a Division 1 event. Just amazing.
Okay. You won your home tournament. Just tell me a little bit about your home course, at Fresno, and just what was it like to, win your home tournament?
Yeah, so it was a course called Belmont Country Club, and it was kind
Oh,
of
okay.
not Bermuda, but like kind of a bit of both. And it was my first time my parents had seen me play as a bulldog ever in 4 years. And I'd been playing well in the lead up to it, and you just never know though. And I think I only won it by one shot in the end, but it was just amazing, and to have all my teammates there and the coaches there, and I had a coach outside of the team as well, and she was there, so it was just like everybody was there to the win, and it was just so special.
Yeah. So I'm sure, the courses are pretty different from England, the US. So just, tell me, how did you deal with, playing, different types of courses, attending school in the US, and do you feel like, your game transitions to, different types of courses? Or you think, how does that
Yes.
work for you?
So like I found it a little bit difficult at first, especially when we'd go to the Bermuda type courses. But just kind of I would just quiz coach on it, and
Yeah.
okay, coach, like help me. I'm in the rough, like short sided. Like how am I going to play this shot? Because I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
And I feel like when we went back to Savannah, it was kind of Bermuda, and I'm thinking like, oh well, okay, well, like I know how to play this now because I've done this so many times during my time in Fresno, and you just kind of learn the different things because we don't have that as such. We have the links and the parkland style courses, but you don't get this like sticky grass or whatever, making your life more difficult.
Yeah. So you're an amateur golfer and you also play in the LAT Access Series, but tell me about some of the, tournaments you play outside of the Access Series, some of your, amateur tournaments that you play in, or that you just enjoy, getting to play in.
Yeah, so I'll pretty much play like every week unless I'm at the
Okay.
stuff unless there's access on. So the main ones I play, like the big ones, are the British Arm and the English Arm, and then there's also a Scottish Ladies which is played at Troon, and a Welsh Ladies. They're like the four biggest events. But yeah, it's kind of like every week, and we get to play open venues all the time, which is just amazing. Like
Mhm.
there's a tournament, the St. Rule at St. Andrews, and you get to play 2 rounds on the new and 1 round on the old plus a practice round, and it's just the best tournament of the year. Being at St. Andrews for like 5 rounds, 5 rounds guaranteed. There's no cut for it, or yeah, it's just my favorite place to go.
Yeah. So you mentioned getting to play, open courses. Just what's it like, getting to play in open venue?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think this year I've played like 4 or 5, just like, well, in 2024, and just amazing every time you get the opportunity. And that's what you get from playing the amateur events, whereas they don't tend to play the pro events on open venues because obviously the
Mhm.
organizations that set it up are slightly different. If like the R&A run the event, they can kind of go wherever. Yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah. And you mentioned, you play probably an amateur tournament most weeks. So I don't know if we talked about this, but just tell me a little bit about, amateur golf in England, just what's it like and, just what's the amateur golf scene, like in England.
Yeah, it's good. There's quite a lot of things for you to play in, and then it's slightly changed in the last few years for me personally because a lot of the people that I grew up with playing amateur golf have moved on to professional. So it's kind of like you go to the event and you don't recognize many people, but like the standard is still as high. You just kind of like the younger people coming through. But yeah, it's great, and it's a great kind of community as well.
Yeah. So final, topic I wanted to talk about, is golf and just how special it is and how it's impacted your life. So golf, it's brought you to Fresno State, in California. It's brought you to Georgia to represent Europe. It's brought you, to play in some high level amateur tournaments. You play in the Access Series. So just first off, just tell me, what has golf meant to your life, and um, just tell me about, the impact golf has made on your life. Just, what does golf mean to you?
Yeah, so basically my whole life right now revolves around golf, and it's just so it's such a special thing, and I don't know really what I'd do without golf. Like I say, it's took me some amazing places and met amazing people and friends and stuff. And I feel like golf's also a kind of game where you learn a lot of life skills, like the etiquette of being out on the golf course you can take
Yeah.
into life. And it's just yeah, it's just unbelievable. Every time we travel somewhere, we're like, God, this is because we hit this little white ball around trying to get it into a hole at the end, like we're in America or whatever doing this. It's crazy.
Yeah. And to you, is it more special, is results more special to you, or is just making memories, like being teammates, with your European teammates, or, making memories at Fresno State, what's more special to you?
Yeah, so it's a bit of both really, but the
Mhm.
the memories are so important. Like
Yeah.
the people that I met at Fresno and then the Concession Cup team as well.
Yeah.
It's something that you'll never forget, even when you don't play golf.
Yeah. And finally, what do you hope or what do you see, going forward, for your golf career? Like, do you have any goals or plans for your golf career, or are you just, hoping to play well this upcoming year on Access Series and then things will take care of themselves?
Yeah, so there's a bit of that, just kind of go
Mhm.
on to the access and see what happens. But eventually I'd like to turn professional and get my card for the LET as well.